Sorry I'm late.
Maybe I better have a chat with this boy, I thought. Perhaps, if I explain things, he'll rest easy.
Yesterday I gave a full account to the Prime Minister of my actions between the 27th of March and the 14th of April, what I thought and did. And he's asked me to repeat that account directly to you.
I want you to have all the background. This is a very ominous assignment, with overtones of extreme personal danger.
Around midnight on Thursday the 26th of March, I spoke to the Prime Minister. He told me that he'd tested positive for COVID.
He'd report us at once to some kind of outback Nazi law enforcement agency and they'll run us down like dogs. Jesus, did I say that?
We discussed the national emergency, arrangements for number 10 given his isolation, and what I would do in number 10 the next day.
I gotta get off. Really have this phone tapped, baby.
The next morning I went to work as usual. I suddenly got a call from my wife. She told me she suddenly felt badly ill and felt like she might pass out and there would be nobody to look after our child. None of our usual childcare options were available.
That's that.
After very briefly telling some officials in number 10 what had happened,
Is that right?
I immediately left the building, ran to a car and drove home. I had a few conflicting thoughts in my mind.
No point mentioning these bats, I thought. The poor bastard will see them soon enough.
I thought the best thing to do in all the circumstances was to drive to an isolated cottage on my father's farm.
We can't stop here. This is bat country.
So I drove the three of us up to Durham that night, arriving roughly at midnight.
The only thing that really worried me was the ether. There is nothing in the world more helpless and irresponsible and depraved than a man in the depths of an ether binge.
I did not stop on the way. When I woke the next morning, Saturday the 28th of March, I was in pain and clearly had COVID symptoms, including a bad headache and a serious fever.
We had 2 bags of grass, 75 pellets of mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered blotter acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine,
Clearly I could not return to work anytime soon.
a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, also a quarter tequila, quarter rum, case of beer, pint of raw ether, and 2 dozen amyls. Not that we needed all that for the trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can.
After I started to recover, at one point the three of us walked into woods owned by my father next to the cottage that I was staying in.
Bat country.
On Sunday the 12th of April, 15 days after I first displayed symptoms, I decided to return to work.
I remember saying something like,
I feel a bit lightheaded.
My wife was very worried, particularly given my eyesight had seemed to have been affected by the disease. She did not want to risk a nearly 300-mile drive with our child, given how ill I had been.
Get in.
We agreed that we should go for a short drive to see if I could drive safely.
Maybe you should drive.
We drove for roughly half an hour and ended up on the outskirts of Barnard Castle town. We did not visit the castle, we did not walk around the town. We parked by a river. We walked about 10 to 15 meters from the car to the riverbank nearby. We sat there for about 15 minutes. We had no interactions with anybody. I felt better. We returned to the car. An elderly gentleman walking nearby appeared to recognize me. My wife wished him happy Easter from a distance, but we had no other interaction.
and I knew we'd get into that rotten stuff pretty soon.
We pulled over to the side of the road. My wife and child jumped out into the woods by the side of the road. They were briefly outside. I briefly joined them.
No more of that talk or I'll put the fucking leashes on you, understand?
I can understand that some people will argue that I should have stayed at my home in London throughout. I understand these views.
Was I talking? Did they hear me?
I know the intense hardship and sacrifice that the entire country has had to go through. However, I respectfully disagree.
There's one thing you should probably understand. Can you hear me?